Hello, this is Riley Smith with the MakeGood Creative Network. I am a full-time writer. I have written novels and published them. Today I want to talk to you a bit about how do you prepare to write a novel. Why do you need to prepare to write a novel? Because it's hard. It's a hard thing to do. And a lot of people start it and never finish, or a lot of people have an idea and they never get started. So these are the steps that you can take so that you feel more confident when you begin your book, and you will be more likely to actually finish it. The first thing, some people disagree about this and I think they're dumb. Read in your genre. Read books similar to the thing you're trying to write. I don't understand why people think this is unnecessary. Read books in your genre. There's several benefits to doing this. One, if you read and think critically about them, you will learn how plots are generally done in the genre you're trying to write in. So you will learn what your readers expect. And then you can either follow that, use that, or you can subvert it. But at least you're doing it consciously and you don't just copy a bunch of cliches or do something that makes readers really angry. Such as, for instance, my first collection of romance short stories. Turns out they're not romance because they don't have a happy ending. This was something that readers expected. I think it's a happy ending, but it's not a conventional happy ending, and people were upset. So you need to make sure that you read in your genre to figure out the plots and how people expect the stories to go, so that you are at least consciously subverting that if you decide not to do that, rather than just accidentally alienating your reader base. Additionally, you'll see tropes, so not just plot, things that people are used to seeing in your genre, and you'll know, again, whether your use of a grumpy protag and a sunshiny, happy-go-lucky love interest, has that been done before? Yes. So if you read in your genre, you can see how it's been done before to make sure that you're adding something new or doing it in a way that people tend to like. The other benefit to this is that you will see that people actually do like and do publish the kind of thing you're interested in writing. My dog has arrived. He will be crying for the rest of the video. If you read in your genre or read books that are similar to yours, I have to pet him or he's gonna just knock down the camera. If you read books that are similar to yours, you will gain confidence and be more likely to finish your project, because you're not gonna be like, oh, but is anybody really interested in a story about a group of mythical characters going on a quest together to destroy a powerful object that could fall into the wrong hands? Would anyone like that? Yes. People are very obsessed with the Lord of the Rings and the billion other stories that fit that. So make sure you read things that are similar to what you're trying to do. So he's gonna knock everything over in the background. So make sure you read things that are in your genre or similar to what you're trying to write, so that you know what's been done and you feel confident that people are actually going to like and want to buy what you are making. This doesn't have to take forever. I'm not saying that you have to go get a doctorate in grumpy sunshine romance tropes, but making a list of, I'd say, at least 5 up to 20 books that are similar. When I was writing my debut novel, Cardinal, I definitely made a list of dystopian books to read, books about prison cities, action books with really good action scenes. And specifically, I read several novels while I was working on the book about sassy, powerful woman protagonists. So I could kind of see what is being done with that kind of character. So people who seem like they might be similar to Cardinal. who is the main character of my book. So just make a list of 5 to 20 books that have an aspect or are in the genre that you are trying to write. You can add some things in there that aren't necessarily a book. Like I said, Cardinal was actually super heavily inspired, not just by those books I talked about, but by comic books and movies. Cardinal's really heavily inspired by Harley Quinn and Deadpool, who I love. I love both of them so dearly. So those movies, as well as a bunch of the comics, really inspired me and helped me stay motivated to finish the book. And helped me see like what people like about those characters. It really helped me think like, okay, what is it about Harley Pool? That's it. That's what I'm gonna say from now on. What is it about Harley Pool that people seem to like, and how can I use that to create somebody new? If you're like, but my book idea is so original, there's nothing like it, you're wrong. You're wrong. There's something about your book, there's something in your book that another book is similar to it. Okay, so give this some thought. If your book is, no, there's no way. I was like trying to think, like your book is not so different, so special. Sorry, your idea is cool. I'm sure it's very cool. But there is some aspect of the plot, of the characters, you were inspired by something, it has a genre or it's similar to a genre. Make your list. Don't just say, oh, my book is so very special, there's nothing like it. You're wrong. Put some thought into this and you will be grateful you did, because if you're thinking, my book is so special, no one has ever done this before in the whole history of literature and film, you will feel very silly when you publish your book or show somebody or talk to them about it and they say, that sounds like Bram Stoker's Dracula. I use this example because I saw this, I'm just ranting now. I saw somebody on Twitter be like, I had an idea to write a book just in letters, like just people writing letters to each other. Has that been done before? Yes, that is one of the oldest forms of novel. That is what, like Bram Stoker's Dracula is entirely letters and diary entries. It's called an epistolary novel. You'll look silly. There is some book that is similar to your book. Go find it, go read it. You'll learn a lot and you'll feel motivated. Don't be the person who's like, my book is so special. It's diary entries and a letter about a vampire. Like, don't be that person. The next tip I have for you is to read about writing. Again, I definitely don't think that you need like an English doctorate to be a good writer. In some ways, maybe that could make it harder because you're thinking too much about it. But you do need to know some things about writing. And I don't mean just like reading writers' biographies, because every writer is going to have like their idea of how things work for them. That might not be particularly helpful. I have some suggestions for books that will make you a better writer in a different video. Check that out. But you definitely need to read about writing. This is another thing that people disagree with, and I think it is also ridiculous. Imagine if rocket scientists, like somebody said to you, I want to build a rocket. And you were like, that's super cool. Have you been like reading textbooks about rocket science? Like, have you read anything about rocket science? And they were like, no, that's a waste of time. I'm just going to build a rocket and keep building rockets until something works. That's insane. Other people have figured out how to do this thing well before you. Use that, learn from that. So before you sit down to build your rocket, go read about rocket science. Go read about writing before you write your novel. The next thing you should definitely do before attempting a novel, practice with shorter projects. Okay, so short stories or segments or free writing. Give yourself time to practice. One of the books I recommend a lot to people who want to be a writer is Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones. And in it, she says that, I'm going to paraphrase here, it's totally weird that we accept this in sports, that people can practice long hours You can practice, hundreds of hours for one big game or whatever, or one big match. But in writing, we just expect to be able to sit down and just do well magically. And it doesn't have to be like that. Give yourself the space to practice. Write shorter works. This will build your skills. This will build your confidence. It'll make it more likely that you finish your novel and that you like the outcome and that it is good, whatever that means. If you've never really written short stories before, you're not sure where to start, it can be helpful to take a class. It's not totally necessary. At least read some short stories, that'll help a lot. But I think what's nice about the class, even if like the teacher's not particularly good, it's still making you write. Like you're going to have to write as like homework for the class, as part of the class. So it's teaching you to write on a deadline and write consistently. So I really recommend getting into some type of writing class when you start this journey so that you get used to writing regularly and receiving feedback on that writing. Whether you like the feedback or not, that's a different story. Next thing that you need to do before you start writing your novel, build a support network. Have this ready before you even get started. Writing is a very solitary endeavor. It takes a lot of internal motivation, but it doesn't just have to take internal motivation. If you rely on that exclusively, you're gonna get burnt out. You're not gonna finish your book. So build a support network. Couple of ways to do this. I really recommend joining a writing group. You can probably find one in your area on Meetup. If you can't find one in your area, there is certainly a bunch online. A writing group is how I finished my first novel. You can join a group that either reviews each other's stuff or just gets together to sit in a cafe and get some work done. Either way, this is really helpful. It'll keep you motivated and make you feel like you are a writer around other writers. It's a really cool vibe. It'll help you finish your book. But find one before you hit writer's block, before you hit that point in your book where you're like, I'm doubting everything I ever knew about myself. Join the group first before you even get started. The other thing is to get on writer Twitter. If you're a Twitter person, maybe you hate the mirror concept, but a lot of times social media is a horrifying cesspool. Writer Twitter is actually nice. You can find these posts at #writingcommunity. This is just like mostly indie writers or people trying to get agents, people who are trying to finish drafting a book. Everybody's really encouraging. You can be like, I wrote 500 words today, or like you can ask questions like, when do you use an M dash? Like if the internet is confusing you and you're not sure, you can ask people's opinions. People do writers' lifts, encouraging each other to follow each other. It's a really cool vibe. So before you start writing your novel, if you're on Twitter or if you've been considering getting on Twitter, I really recommend it. #writingcommunity. The other thing you have to do is get used to talking about your project, at least to the people who are very closest to you. Maybe you don't want to go into it too much, but telling somebody like, I wrote a chapter this week feels awesome. And also telling someone, I'm going to write a chapter this week is very motivating because you don't want to be an effing liar. So it's helpful to make sure you can talk about it with the people who are closest to you. So if you're not very good at that, start practicing that before you start writing your book. Get used to being like, I am going to write a novel, and get used to saying that out loud to people. It'll help keep you motivated, and people will probably be more interested in it than you think they will. You might think everybody will be like, oh God, I don't want to hear about this. But actually, unless you're around like total shitbags, people are generally pretty supportive. So practice talking about your novel so that you can figure out who is the most supportive. And then you know who later, when you're feeling discouraged, you can go and talk to about your book and get some more support. So if you follow all of these steps and you do all of these things, I really believe you will feel ready to start writing your book. But the last thing I'm going to say that you definitely need to do before you start writing your book is set a date for when you're going to start, when you're going to put pen to paper and start getting those words down for your draft. You don't want to be stuck forever in the preparing phase. You don't want to be like, well, I need to read 5 more books about goblins. Like, just, you need to start your book at some point or you will definitely never ever finish it. So I would say set a date no more than 5 months from today. Today, right now, when you're watching this video. If you want to write your book, 5 months from today, you will start writing it. You will sit down and get something down on paper. If you don't set this date, you're not going to do it. If you just put it off to the future, you're not going to do it. So set a date, keep yourself accountable, write it down, tell people, talk to people about it, and then make a plan for how you're going to do all the other things that I mentioned in the video so that you are super prepared when you sit down to write your book. If you need more help feeling creative, like you don't even feel confident enough to start doing the stuff that I mentioned, or you are already working on a book and you have writer's block, and whatever it is, if you need help getting into your creative life space, we have the guide for you. You can download it for free at the link in the description below. It is called the 21 Creativity Killers and How to Beat Them. Basically, it'll help you diagnose what exactly it is that's holding you back, that's keeping you from creating to your fullest potential, and then how do you beat that? How do you fight that, get that out of your life? Kick it out of here. Kick it out of here. So go ahead and download that in the description below. We do a lot of writer content on this channel because, like I said, I am a writer and I feel bad talking about things that I don't really know about. So we do a lot of writing and comedy content because that's the 2 things I know sort of how to do. So if you want more writer content, make sure you like the video, thank you, and subscribe to the channel. Yeah, subscribe to the channel, like the video, download that guide, but most importantly, let's go write a book.